So thanks for having me. I'm going to go through kind of an overview of what this process is, what we've kind of developed at the university. So a little bit, just start with me, or what we're going to go through. You talked about code coverage and CRAP scores. CRAP score, for those of you who don't know, is not something I just made up. It is a real score, of course, developed or written by probably developers who just wanted to say that code's crap or something like that. So kind of the things we're going to go over: who am I, where I'm from, why I'm here, that sort of thing. So first, who am I? The question I always get asked is, how's the weather in Miami? So I want to go through a few things about where Miami is. So a little bit about us. We've got a few famous alumni. And they're back. The ghosts are, that's the normal. Sweet. Okay. No, that's fine. I guess I'll just ignore it. It's the ghosts in the room. Well, I'm talking about an old guy. So we have a president. It was an alumni of Miami. Some other people who you may have heard of other than him, from as for our coaches of all things, particularly for football. You wouldn't imagine that, but a few people you may recognize or know all graduated from Miami. And so I put that in there just to kind of tease a little about, I'm not from Miami in Florida. Florida was part of Spain for years and years and years. Miami University in Oxford, Ohio was chartered in 1809 when we joked that Florida still belonged to Spain. So fun little tidbit that I shared with some people yesterday, that Miami and Daytona were cities in Florida were laid out by people who live or from the Miami Valley. This is Miami's campus on the right there. The Miami comes from the Miami Indians in Ohio. Got, moved to Oklahoma and that sort of thing, but that's where we got our name. So little tidbit about us. From an organization, we are a university. We have lots and lots of code. Very much crap, very much an assortment of stuff that we have to support, maintain. We've got about 20,000 students, and we have just an assortment, like I said, of software. So all sorts of different languages. Yes, we still have COBOL. We have some Perl. You've got Python. Yes, we're trying to get rid of the COBOL. Pro C if you want, it's out there too. But yeah, so how do you compare all those sorts of things, right? We have big things that are like full-blown applications, that, a big PHP application, and then we have a couple little shell scripts or Perl scripts and how do you compare those two different things? And so when I started, I worked for Miami for years. I was a developer. And about 6 years ago or so, they kind of said, let's start bringing up this quality aspect, improve the quality of our software. And so I started the conversations of, what does that mean? Like, improve the quality of that COBOL script? I don't even know the COBOL, but how can we improve that? What do we need to do? Asking all sorts of questions. And so starting to get the conversations going about quality and improving things that we have. How do you put these things on a... Oop, that was too far, isn't it? Oh, PHP, we have CRAP scores, you've got code coverage, but you can't really code coverage a shell script. There isn't a unit testing for COBOL for sure, but, so how does that work? You can't really focus on one language. Then what about the other ones? And how can we kind of compare those back and forth? And so I was kind of using this analogy of comparing two different things that don't at all seem similar. Compare the Golden Gate Bridge with a double-decker bus, right? How can you decide which one you put effort into fixing? What's the stuff that you need to fix? What's more important? So what's the next thing? Let's kind of balance these two things. Like, what's that scale? I thought that was kind of fun. The Marie Kondo, does it spark joy? Do I want to fix this thing? Is there any value in fixing this thing? And so having these conversations about where we go, what do we do, really brought me to this point of trying to determine just this level with all those different things that we have to support, all those different things we maintain. Where do we start? What's the, I've been using the biggest bang for your buck kind of idea. And so where does it belong? Some of you may have seen Lisa Crispin's, 4 quadrants, right? And so trying to figure out how maybe my stuff fit and all the things that we support fitting into the Magic Quadrants here, right? You've got unit tests, and she's really talking about testing and all the different things. And so that kind of works for some things, but I have some stuff that never anyone even sees, right? The shell script that maybe just supports or loads data into some systems for different applicants. So we have thousands of applicants who apply at Miami. The only process in there, that service, is a shell script that loads all of the application data into our student system, like our CRM, right? How do we test that other than, okay, that person, his record was loaded correctly into this spot. So some of that testing maybe doesn't work from an exploratory testing, or there is no UI to test. So how does that work? The next thing I kind of looked at was the testing maturity model. One of our old VP was very adamant on everything had to be CMM. He was some CMM black belt or something. I don't even know what it was. But everything he wanted to do was CMM, which I don't actually remember what it stood for. But it was this level idea of I think people are talking to me and they're not. You started at this base level. And so everything you did level 1 of whatever this sort of thing was, and then you improved upon it by moving up to level 2. And so it was this kind of almost a hierarchy of, I had to do this foundation work. And again, I'm stuck in on how do we compare these apples and these oranges, or the bridge with the school bus, with the double-decker bus. How can those two totally different things kind of balance, or how can we compare those two different aspects? And so I started looking at defining our quality software. What does it look like? What does it mean for quality? Don't go that way. Nope, that's not it. It is. It's peaceful, just calming, relaxing moment. No, yeah, maybe. I thought it was supposed to rain up here in the Pacific Northwest, but not yet. So we started looking. What's that little rain tube that the relaxing? Never mind. So we started looking at and kind of talking through quality software. How does that look? What does it look like? Does tests mean it's higher quality, right? If this code doesn't have any tests, is it a high quality piece of software? Or do we need lots of tests to prove that this is good software? And so we are higher ed after all. So we've got grades, right? And so what does that look like in comparing the grade of our software almost? This was kind of a little example on just the different ranges, the different grades that people go through. And so, not everything needs to be an A, right? I teach a class on web programming, and there are some students who I know just want to pass. They've made some determining factor that passing is good enough. And then you have these other students who, if they don't get an A+++, they failed. Like, that is the perfect score for them. And everyone has this different balance of, what do I need? What is the appropriate level of effort to make something good enough? And so here was kind of that crossing of higher ed kind of things, quality software, and that sort of thing. And this is a little graph that kind of tried to combine those TMMs that we were talking about with Lisa's, the magic quadrants in there. And this was kind of for us looking at how to define how good our quality of our stuff was, right? Using grades, like I said, we are higher ed. And so how do we fit different software across this range of our scale here? right? I have things up here in the lower right, down here in the bottom, it's a red, it's a letter D. You can't see on this screen, I'm sorry. But it's something that has almost no confidence. Like it's just out there, but everyone in the university uses it. That's a D for us, right? We probably want to improve that. It doesn't change our audience, right? We have fixed sets of audience, right? We have an application that is for all of our students use it to register for their classes. You know, that's our audience. I'm not gonna grow or reduce the number of people who use this. You know, a lot of you probably are in sales and you want to sell this software to new people. I have no one to sell this software to. My fixed audience is, you know, 22,000 students. They use this software for grading, or not for grading, to register for the classes, or here's the software that they go in to see their grades. So that's kind of our audience. And then I have small things over here where the registrar's office uses this to schedule classrooms. There's 10 people in that audience, right? So there's different ranges, and how important is it for certain things? You know, something that's minimally used, do I need to spend the effort on it to kind of get it a higher grade? Or something that's used a lot, I want to spend more effort, more time on that thing to make sure it's better, right? And so as a stakeholders in our process, or, you know, developers on the team, they have to have these conversations of, where does my software fit? Is it used by a lot of people? So we need to spend a lot of time. And I started looking at this as a way to kind of talk to the development teams and say, hey, okay, this is used by all those people. Maybe we should spend a little more time. If I can break it in 5 minutes, it's probably not good enough, right? There's a bunch of engineering students who just like to break things for fun. That's what they do. So where does it fall on that grade scale? Maybe we should shoot for a B instead of hanging out in that C level or a D level. And so this was our starting point from a service confidence. We didn't call it service confidence yet. This was just confidence, like, of how do we feel about this code and this software that we write. And so that's where our history was, as we kind of learned and developed and started figuring out how to start comparing our software across the different aspects, right? From that shell script over to the full-blown PHP web application. And so from there, there's all my notes. We then took that and started developing this framework, and we've kind of started formalizing it across all of our teams. And anytime we touch a new piece of software, we kind of go through a process to grade, if you will, or score, in this case, our different services. So we go through, we score them. We've got a little graph that we throw it on, kind of to visualize the process. And then we're going to try, right now in the process, is improving how we act upon that information that we've gathered. And so this scoring effort is a very interesting effort. We have a group of people, I mean, maybe this size of group, we could talk through a piece of software that we're developing or that you use and say, hey, you're the developer. How do you feel about this software, right? What happens? What does it look like? And so we get a diverse set of stakeholders involved. Like I said, we know who our stakeholders are. The stuff that we're talking about is either, maybe it's for a particular office, maybe it's for a whole bunch of people in different offices, maybe it's just for that guy. So we have different pieces. And so getting everyone in the room to talk through this is the important part of us for the process. It's not a static analysis where I can run it specifically to get the crap scores or anything like that. But one thing we've started to learn is just having those people in the room together and having this conversation has been almost one of the most valuable parts. So we can get this office's perspective on how good this software is or how bad the software is, or, oh, did you know that this thing is used by this many people? Or we can't write checks if this doesn't happen, or something like that. Versus the developer says, this is the best thing I've written since I've ever, right? And so getting those conversations going has been an awesome thing that, honestly, when we started, we didn't even know that was a thing. That's not where we were expecting the value. So we are going through, and these are kind of the different aspects of the software we look at. I talk back and forth between software and services. We're trying to centralize. It's a service that we support, right? It could be, instead of saying, hey, here, this is a shell script, or this is a whole application. We're trying to consistently talk about a service that we provide to normally some part of the organization or something like that. And these are three factors that you'll see them as axes on our graph in a little bit, but what are the things we talk through to figure out what is our confidence level of our particular service we're working on? So those are the three that we look at: context, confidence, the direct confidence, and the complexity of this service. So I'm going to go through kind of those three just to walk through some of the examples and things like that. Context for us is things that are outside of our control. How often is this thing used? How many people use it? Is this critical to the business? We were talking through one a couple of days ago, actually, that I don't think we all knew. This is really important. We need it for students use this every week, and they need it for placements in classes or something like that. You know, this is how we get the test scores in. This determines if they can skip that freshman English class or the first level of their Spanish 101. So it's very important from a scheduling perspective, and students use it all the time. But honestly, the developers think it's a piece of crap. Not in the crap score way, but it's just bad. So we got to learn really that complexity of, or the content, that usage. How often is it used? How important is it to the university? Oh, that was you, sorry. This direct confidence is one that we have direct control over. So that's where some of the test coverage comes in, right? How well do we control the change management, that sort of thing? Do we have logging? Some of our stuff has no logging. So it's kind of low on that observability. That's the other thing we learned in this test score loading. Oh, it blows up and we don't tell anybody. It'll run tomorrow. It's kind of scared a few people, especially me in the quality aspect, but the positive track record was kind of what we heard earlier about mean time to failure, right? How long does it take? How many deployments does it take? Or does it fail quickly all the time? That sort of thing. So those were kind of factors we looked at to things that we have control over. One of the ones that's on there was documentation. And so we started coming up with this documentation map, a knowledge map, as our documentation person calls it. And it's part of just, she scours all sorts of things, where it's the knowledge base, if it's our Git repository, other random places in a wiki or whatever. Heck, she searches through Google too, our Google Docs that we have, to find where we can find that information, which has been good for us to figure out. You know, I use this picture almost on purpose there's stuff everywhere. And the more some of that software or that documentation, the harder it is to, right? You may have tons and tons of documentation, but if our ops team can't find it when something breaks, that's not really valuable. If it's 3 years out of date and we've updated this software twice since then, probably not valuable either. So it's really been good to kind of go through this knowledge map process of looking through and finding our documentation. Where's this stuff live? Where does it? Oh, maybe we should move it over here so we can find it. Or if nothing more than putting a link in the knowledge base that says, hey, if you need the documentation, it's over here in the wiki article, kind of thing. But that all falls into that direct confidence, things we have control over. If we write more documentation, my confidence is going to improve because I now know how to support this thing better. Or if I find all that documentation, I know where I can get to it. So all different aspects on how we can improve that confidence in our application and the services that we have. And then the complexity. So that's the third aspect of our service confidence, right? How many libraries does it use? What does it connect to? This is where that the code complexity, kind of those crap scores fit in there a little bit. What different things does it talk to? On the direct confidence, we talk about how reliable is this thing? Does it talk to a bunch of stuff, but I can recover from those failures? If I talk to a web service and I don't even handle how if that web service isn't there, that's not the best of a solution. So I can kind of have two bad things against it, right? It's more complex because it talks to more things, but I also don't handle talking to that thing that well. So we have these different complexities that we have. And so all of these little bullet points are topics we have in those conversations, right? When we have all the stakeholders in the room together, we go through and discuss, so what do you think about that code coverage? Or in this case, this is really complex, right? It talks to X, Y, and Z. You have confidence in how you handle or work with them. More noises from the speakers. How does it all fit together? So we come out of each of those different aspects and then we rate our software, right? We give it a 1 to 10 number on complexity. We give it a 1 to 10 on the code coverage and 1 to 10 on the context, right? Here's the last couple we've done. Most of the services on the side maybe don't make sense, but we have different processes. There's a post-secondary thing that we have to use to report data to the National Student Clearinghouse. It's only used, you see it's an 8 on complexity. It talks to a whole lot of different things, but it's only used a little bit. And we have a very low confidence in it. It breaks all the time. Do we want to spend the time or the effort to work on it? Other ones maybe have a low complexity, high confidence, different things like that. So we've started going through and starting rating and scoring each of these services as we start working on them. Next time we work on something, we'll go back and, hey, did your number go up? Did you look at that again? Hopefully the numbers improve every time some team works on that software. If not, we may have to, why did you decide to lower that number? So then after we score it, here's that visualize, right? That was that X and the Y that I kind of talked about, the different axes on our graph. And so we've started plotting things on here, and things in this upper left-hand corner are used a lot, and we have very little confidence in them, right? So you don't ever want to be in that upper left-hand corner. But what's it going to take to shift us, in this case, right, not left? I know maybe it's a bad analogy, but we're going to shift our bubble to the right. What does it take to improve our confidence in our service? What are the different aspects? Something down here at the bottom, maybe it's okay. It's not used that often. It has low confidence, but maybe the office can handle waiting a week to fix a bug or a month. Some, maybe they only use it twice a year. To be honest, we've got a few that run quarterly. So we've got 1, plenty of time to fix it, and 2, maybe there's just a manual workaround and they can do it on their own. But the things that are very high, that are used all the time, let's move them to the right so we have more confidence in them, which goes right into that ACT step, right? What does it take? How much effort do we want to put in there to move it to the right? And if you go back to those grades, well, maybe it's okay that I'm a C, or maybe I'm okay with the B. What does it take to get to the A? And is it worth it, right? And so we can start looking at what it takes and what are the things that we need to do to move it over to that next level. And so this has been an interesting and a good process to kind of walk through the different applications or services that we support, and where does it fall on this graph or this grid of high use, high confidence, or maybe high use and low confidence? And which things do we want to spend the time on? And so things we have learned so far, like I said, originally we just wanted to kind of get a score. But having these conversations are things that we've learned that are very important, right? Kind of alluded to a couple of these things, but one thing that I remember, we had a meeting a couple of weeks, it's been a few months at this point. We were going through this service confidence with the department, or with this one application on I think it was HEI, so Higher Ed Institute, of all the data we have to send. And they, the federal government does all sorts of connecting of data and things like that. And we have next to no documentation on it that we knew about. We have a little on the developers, how it runs and what it does. But during the conversation, we found out that the office had a whole, 30-page PDF document on how to use this thing or what to do if this broke. Did not expect that to come out of this conversation. But grabbing that information and now it's included. And so if our ops team has an issue, they can now solve it. We don't have to say, I don't know, go send it off to that guy, because it's not ours. Now we have all this extra information we didn't even know about. So really having some of those conversations, again, was where the value is. But you have to kind of balance that, right? Everything we want to do is as automated as possible. We want to get it done and out the door. But this requires those conversations to happen, to talk to people, as scary as it may be, to find out information and to learn different things from about the software and what they do. The other thing we started learning was the time, like not so much how long it takes, but when to have these conversations matters. So if you have a sprint or two of a project, right? If you meet with a team and talk through them about this stuff too early on, they're a little hesitant to give themselves such low numbers because they haven't done the documentation yet. They haven't finished writing the test yet or anything like that. So we realized that if you do it too soon, you get the teams get bad scores, which is bad, perceived to be bad. And so when we have that meeting, it has been a balance from us as to early on in the project, late in a project, somewhere in the middle of the project, and how that fits together. So we've been doing this maybe about a year or two so far, a year and a half, on just kind of pushing this process forward and where to go, trying to learn more information about our services and what we support. And so things that we're looking to improve going forward. Right now, we're having meetings and going through these service confidence anytime the software is touched. Could we have those conversations more often? Maybe they're shorter because we don't have to spend an hour. I mean, these aren't long meetings, it's an hour. But when can we have those meetings? Can we use this information to determine, hey, this thing is really bad. We have no confidence in it. Everybody uses it. We should probably spend a little more time to start doing that shift right thing, right? Let's move it over on that scale to get it higher confidence in it. We're going to get a bigger ROI on there, right? Or I guess it's a lower ROI, time frame wise. We get more return with a little bit of effort. And so using some of this information to try to determine which pieces of code we should work on. That one that was in the bottom of the left, we don't need to spend any time on it, right? No one uses it. It's medium confidence, but it's good enough. Maybe that's a C and we're good with it. So from an ROI standpoint, we're trying to start using some of that information if we've reviewed it once, we've had this service confidence discussion once, before we have the next round of updates. Do we update this thing that's upper left or something that's down and to the right or something? Where's that ROI in the scale? Wow, it's a half hour. That's pretty close. So that's really where we're at. Things we've done. So I guess in my half hour so far. Questions? Yes. It's all subjective. Yeah. So the question was, is there a rubric that we use on how the scores? And really, we use this little there. We kind of go through the scoring once, and how does it fit? What do you know about your service, and compare it to some of these that we've already done. But really going through all of these questions over here somewhere and having those conversations through these. It's not an exact rubric per se, because they're so diverse. But so this is the closest. We don't have a score that says, hey, if you do, you have 80% code coverage, you're going to get a, high direct confidence, because we have the shell scripts that don't have tests in them. So that's kind of where that balance, it is all subjective, and that's kind of the benefit of it. Because in this space, what is that thing? How is it? Okay, we can't test XYZ, so we may talk about it, and it kind of falls into some of these other ones as to where it fits. But it's not as unobjective as or objective as we want it to be. So very subjective. And how do you feel? Which in higher ed, that's kind of some of the stuff too. How do you feel about this? There's a lot of warm fuzzies in there. So yeah.
Yeah. And so some more negative. Oh my God. Zero, one bug.
Oh, there's no zeros. One of the things, so the question was about how do you, I've got an answer, but I got to go back and answer your question. The feelings aspect of how does it feel? One thing that we've tried to focus on is I'm not judging you as you wrote crap code. So it's really this piece of software. And it is subjective, but it's not a judge about you as a person or you as a coder. And so that's really where the hard part's been in, that timing conversation. That was one of the worst meetings I had, when I had a meeting with the developers, and they had to give themselves like, oh, we have no documentation yet. So they knew that documentation score on our direct confidence was going to be lower. And I think I forget which one it was, but their confidence was so low because everyone in the room at that exact point in time had no confidence in it. We knew they were going to get to it later in the sprint. So it's really focusing on, we're not judging you. It was us judging the software, and it's not no, we're not going to use this. Oh, you write software that's on a 3 confidence level. I'm not going to dock your pay. Oh, you wrote 10s. We're going to give you a bonus. 1, we're higher ed. We never give bonuses, but it's not about the software you write. And it's point in time, right? Next time you touch it, make it better. And it's a group thing. It's not just that one, negative Nancy who said, that sucks. I had 1 bug. It's the worst thing ever. It's everybody involved, right? Ops may love it because it's only been 1 bug and it's been out there for 5 years. So ops is going to kind of bump that score up. And that's really also where that conversation of getting everyone involved helps, right? It's not just the devs, because you're going to get a totally slanted view if you just have the devs. Oh, I've got 90% code coverage. I've got this. Oh, it's a 10. I'm totally confident in it. But then you get the knowledge people and the ops. Nope, that sucks. There is no documentation. It fails every week. And I don't know what to do with it. So it's really getting that balance of everyone involved. And the developers, that one negative person's opinion is not the only one.
It's like money.
Kind of. Yeah, you have to kind of balance, and how does that fit? Yes, sir. The test what? I think it fit in. Like, well, I mean, everyone involved in that group. Like, who's involved in the conversations? Specifically, we want any stakeholders, really. So you're going to have people on the ops side. You've got the developers. Depending on, I'm not going to pull in 4,000 students to do some sort of user group, but maybe, well, but it's more of a focus group in a sense. You might want to look at it that way, right? Here's a focus group on the software. And we don't bring in everyone when you do some of those focus groups. You just a couple people from this range or kind of person, different kinds of people. I mean, all of this information. So we have a, I forget what it's called, asset management, software management. That's not the word I'm looking for. Again, a collection of all the things that we have, the service database. I can't think of the right word. You get the idea. It's a collection of all of the things that we support. And as we go through these, we put that in this information in those. So we don't send it out. If you want it, you can go find it. Also, I think there's an acronym. It's, you want to know the thing that support, or it's a, it's not a service level agreement, but it'd be the thing that had all the service levels in it, or all the things you support. Something like that. Yeah, I was thinking of a ledger or something. I can't think of the word. It'll come to me. I'll try to remember. No. KPI is, no, that's the key performance indicators. I got that one. No, CMM model is a, I think one of the M's is actually model. What? Yeah. He was all gung ho about it, but it's been 7 years he left, and so we've stopped doing this. But you have any online that I need to answer? That's it so far. Supposedly they are. I think Moss was working on at least the papers. Yeah, it's submitted. It's up there. If not, somewhere back here. Oops, too far. Oh, I think my contact information is behind there. There. It's like a note up there somewhere. So if you want to find me, I can send you that information too. Have been very valuable. One thing we've tried to tie it to is we have these conversations normally at the end of either a sprint. So as part of the sprint review, we try to tack on an extra hour at the end if we can squeeze it, or half hour during one of those sprint reviews. You've got everyone there anyway. That's kind of the hardest part, is getting everyone together, either virtually or in person. So getting them together, tacking on a half hour is, they normally take about an hour. So it's not super time consuming. Well, minus the knowledge map. I think one of our knowledge person, she spends several hours to kind of get that information at a time. So she has a starting platform that says, hey, here's what I found. Is there anything I don't know about? And so she has some process she goes through. But that's kind of been her. I think we could do it in the meeting, but that's how she likes to do it, is to kind of walk in with an artifact that says, here's what I found. If I could find it, that's a good sign. Is there stuff that we don't know about? The one thing that we put in there that we've started talking through that I forgot to mention was things that aren't in the knowledge base, but if she is the expert on XYZ, let's put her down in the knowledge map. It's not the best knowledge, but it's better than nothing, right? So if he's got a problem with service XYZ, and we can see on here, oh, let's go talk to her. She knows this. either she's going to get annoyed with him and everyone else who comes talk to her, so she's going to write it down, or she maybe likes that, but someone else is at some point going to say, oh, that is our only source of this information. We should probably carve out some time and you can write this down so we have it when the lottery and go somewhere else. So it's better than, the whole, you get hit by a bus and so you can't tell us information. We'll go with the, you won the lottery, which I hear is like 400 million or something right now. So there you go.